So this is a really great week to be talking about your memoir, I feel, because this week we saw the first woman, who happens to also be a woman of color, inaugurated as the vice president of our country. A huge milestone, a huge shattering of yet another glass ceiling. Uh, your book, your memoir, is about your journey in that way, in so many different ways, in terms of not just gender, but also race and other obstacles you had to overcome.
Right, right. That's true. That's very true. Today, when I was looking at her get sworn in, and I said, this is not only historical, it was inspiring, it was groundbreaking, it was all those things, and I even have my little pearls on today, representing female strength. But it was empowering. What was even more important to me is that little girls out there are going to look at her. They're going to see a reflection of the worlds of possibility that they have now. I mean, they've had some, different roads have been opened up, but this really opens up the road for them to say, why not be this or why not be that? I know growing up, when I grew up, I didn't hear anybody talking about little girls becoming a lawyer, little girls becoming, but as I got into the Black Power movement at that time, in college, all those roads started opening up, looking at the fact of the Black Power movement and the struggle that we were going through, and wanting to be part of helping with the solution. And Leona and I looked at that and said, we want to become lawyers. It didn't even cross our mind, what, you're a female? You're not supposed to be that. Of course, the guy I dated was saying, well, Leonia, you can't be a lawyer because that's a male profession. I said, no, it's not. And boy, did we get into arguments. And then when I went to Washington for a conference on it, he was there with me because he wanted to be a lawyer. And they welcomed the women that they saw.
Wow.
They said, we're welcoming you. I nudged him, but now the possibilities are unlimited. It's like looking at this country and saying, you have a real possibility now of change.
And once you decided that the law was going to be the place that you were going to make your mark, you still encountered real resistance because of your gender and your race. And you talk about that in the book.
Yes, when you would think that the racism that I dealt with as a kid in high school and in college was going to be gone when I got into the field of law. And that was not the case. When I appeared in front of white judges, and I was treated differently than the white attorneys. And we could be asking for the same thing for their client that I was asking for mine. But I would have to fight. I would have to fight extremely hard. I'd even have different people that white lawyers represented, but they were Black, come up to me afterwards and say, what you asked for your client, my attorney did too. It took him 5 minutes to get me everything. You were up there, fighting for her tooth and nail. I said that was my job. And I wasn't going to let that judge not give me what I wanted. But it wasn't fair. And I said to myself, they need to have judges who are fair, not sit up there and not be fair. And when you walked into a courtroom and you heard a lawyer say, hey, Bob, how you doing? We're going to the game this weekend. Already, was this a done deal here? But, and then when I became a judge, you said, oh, well, you got a robe on now. That's supposed to end all of that, right? But I saw lawyers, white lawyers, coming into my courtroom, and I'd call the case, and they would say, okay, judge, well, simply just give us a trial date, and we'll come back, and if we haven't resolved this, we'll just have a trial. And I looked at them, I said, last time I thought, I'm wearing the robe, not you. This is my courtroom.
I get to decide that.
Right, I run this, okay, not you. And I said, you're being passed a form right now. You will look at that form. It has dates on it. It has things that you have to do by those dates. I said, and you have to sign that form. My signature will make that form in order. Violate it, and I will come after you with monetary sanctions. This is the way I run it. I said, then when everything is done on there, I said, only then will I give you a trial date. then I know you're ready. That's the way I run my court. And then they looked at me. Now, why should I have had to do that? If they were in front of a white judge in a predominantly white court, none of that would have taken place. They would have taken that little form, they'd have done what they were supposed to do, and said, thank you, judge. Not tell that judge how he was going to run his courtroom. So, you know, more people of color take seats on the bench. A lot of that's going to stop. But I have heard things when lawyers had their guards down. And because I believe in being fair to all lawyers, and they knew that. But I heard one say, my sister was running for judge at the time, and I heard him, court was over, I was still there on the bench, my staff was clearing, getting things together, and he's just talking, running off at the mouth, and he says, well, anybody can run for judge at this court. Any monkey can. I stopped, I looked at him, and everybody froze. I mean, I'm like, my sister's running. What's that supposed to make her?
Right.
I can't help it that you know the rules are that you have to be a person living here in the city of Detroit to be at this court. So you can't run for this because you all are out in the suburbs. And so you're angry. But then you want to categorize our court. So yeah, racism was alive and well and kicking. Yeah.
You took on, a role of trying to help people move forward in their lives, especially drug offenders and people accused of prostitution. Talk about how important that was to be doing.
That was the most important thing I think I ever did on the bench. And I did that portion for 14 years out of the 24 that I sat. And when you have people coming in, and it was right at the time after my sister died that I took this position, and you see within the first week how broken all these people are. And that the substances they take in their system, it's not simple about just put the drug down. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. When you understand how drugs really work, the psychology of what's behind it, and even the physiological aspects of drug taking, and that it gives as much as they may really, 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 really want to, they can't. Then you form a team, you form a process that they go through to give them that guarantee that they can do it. You have checks and balances, et cetera, but you make them pay back their debt to society. At the same token, you help them restore and transform their lives so they can become productive citizens, so they don't go back and reoffend. You want a person who wants to pay taxes out here, has a job, goes back. I can't even tell you how many certificates I got for programs that they completed, certifications for jobs. When they finish my 2-year program, I get invited to their graduation for college. This one is becoming a practical nurse, a registered nurse, a counselor. I'm proud of them. One girl, when I got on Facebook after I retired, she said, Judge, if I invite you, will you come? I'm getting my master's degree. This was the same young lady who, when they brought her off the streets, because I had the braids done at like 2 a.m, bringing you off the streets if you had gas warrants, etc. And she looked at me and said, oh, no. She couldn't even get through the door. She said, take me to any other judge, but not her. No, I looked up, I was doing a case, and I said, do I know you? And she said, no, but I know who you are. I said, put her in the jury box. So as she's going across the courtroom, fussing, getting over there and sitting down, I looked at her, I said, I'm going to tell you like my mama told me. I haven't given you anything to holler about yet. I said, but keep it up. And then she got, panicked. She already heard about me. The word was already out. And the thing about it, the program was such a positive program. Even dope houses turned down some of my folks that would run, and then I'd have the sheriff's department go find them, bring them back. And they said, Judge, even the dope houses won't sell to us when they know we're in your program. And I said, oh, well, that's a good thing. I said, well, okay. And they said, everybody knows you. I said, everybody doesn't know me. Yeah, they do. But the bottom line is they knew what I was trying to do. And when you see how people change. I watch God perform miracles in my courtroom all the time because these people would be with me for 2 years. So I got a chance to see them change from one thing to the next, and to see them 2 years later, all of a sudden, everything you lost, not only do you have it again, not only do you have a new person in your life, someone who's really supporting what you're doing, everything has changed. So it was one thing after the next, story after story. Best time on the bench ever.